Now, the Middle East conflict continues to escalate. At the center of the storm is Israel and its uninhibited offensive against Hamas and Hezbollah. In a strong message, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned that Lebanon will face the same destruction and suffering as Gaza if its people did not free themselves of the militant organization. This comes in wake of the statement that was released by the Hezbollah deputy chief, mentioning for the first time a possibility of a ceasefire between the two warring sides. Meanwhile, there's fresh Israeli strikes that were reported in Beirut and Damascus in the last 24 hours. Israel has been successful in completely wiping out Hamas and Hezbollah leadership. So the question arises is, has Israel won the war against Iran's proxies? Has Jerusalem curtailed the ability of Tehran to wage a proxy war against it? And is there a likelihood of a pullback from the militant organizations that surround Israel? Let's start our conversation. Ambassador Baswati Mukherjee, let's hear it from you. Despite the back channel and the diplomatic talks that are taking place between the United States of America and Netanyahu, Israeli Prime Minister, with regards to what is going to be this next line of action by Israel in a counter-attack to the Iranian ballistic missiles hitting Tel Aviv and other parts of Israel, the question arises over here is that has Israel been able to successfully curtail the proxy war that is being waged by Iran on all sides?
That is impossible to predict in a definitive manner, Megha, given the fact that despite all the Israeli efforts, the Hamas and the Hezbollah still seem to have retained some ability to hit targets in Israel, although not causing too much of damage, but certainly causing enough damage so that the inhabitants in the northern border of Israel, Israeli citizens, have not yet been able to go back to their homes. On the other hand, Israel has certainly succeeded in wiping out the top leadership of Hezbollah and has certainly been able to deliver the clear message that they would continue to do so should Hezbollah continue to target Israel in this manner. Hamas is a much more complicated issue because Hamas is linked with the Palestinian issue and its possible two-state solution which the present Israeli government is committed never to accept. So in other words, that is a separate political issue which needs to be at some point sorted out politically.
Okay.
With regard to Iran, the Iranians had made it clear through their own channels that their attacks on Israel, two attacks, were both meant for state saving and that they don't intend to continue with the attacks unless the Israelis, for example, target Iranian leadership or target their oil storage depots or their nuclear facilities which is deep underground. There have also been reports in many news channels including Al Jazeera that the Iranians have recently tested a nuclear device, underground nuclear device. All this causes a lot of instability and a lot of speculation that if oil targets are hit, then the Straits of Hormuz might get closed. That would affect the global economy. The US presidential elections are coming up on 4th of November. The results will be on the 6th. During this period of instability, perhaps the Americans may be leaning on the Israelis to cool down a little bit as far as Iran is concerned, so that the situation does not escalate further, given the fact that there have been some signals coming from the Iranians that they don't intend to escalate further unless they are attacked. So that would be my assessment, that it's a very uncertain situation, but certainly as far as India is concerned, we would not like to have any escalation, because any escalation now, which means a direct attack on Iran, would result in a wider conflagration, would result in rise of oil prices, and would definitely impact the global economy, including India. So this is not something
Okay.
we would.
Okay, I have with me Evi Aran. He's a senior journalist. He's joining me from Israel. And Aran, how do you view the situation, especially with these very strong statements coming in from Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, warning the people of Lebanon, unless they throw out Hezbollah from their territory, they will face the same fate as the people of Gaza did?
Look, first of all, we need to remember that what Netanyahu says is also for our domestic audience, okay? So it is not only something that is discussed in inner rooms, and we should look at the actions of Israel, not on the statements. And also we need to remember that this might be a pivotal moment for Iran, because we had the illusion that there is some kind of a win-win game between Iran and its proxies. But right now, it is like crystal clear that the proxies, the Arabs, they are like shedding their blood, while the Iranians have like their normal life. And we see that Hezbollah is already saying Israel, okay, we are ready to forget about Gaza, let's stop the war. We see also Hamas collapsing, little by little, okay, shanty, but they are collapsing in Gaza. And right now, Israel feels that the biggest war, or the biggest, let's say, aim of Israel is the collapse of this axis of the Iranian proxies in Gaza, in the West Bank, and in Lebanon. And Israel is in a better situation than it was before. And we see that, the tenures of the new Hezbollah chief was like shorter than summer in London. So we see that right now Hezbollah is losing. Still it is giving a fight. Israel is winning, but Israel cannot really defeat Hezbollah as a military and spiritual force. Maybe it can force Hezbollah to give Israel terms that Israel can live peacefully with, and bring back the dwellers of the half-flag dwellers of the northern border.
Okay. Professor Madan Alapat, important aspects that have been shared by Aran. There has been complete decimation of the Hamas leadership in Gaza. They ended up moving their troops to northern Lebanon along the border, the Golan Heights, and there you have seen that the top leadership and the second rank of the Hezbollah commanders has been decimated. There were a number of these pager attacks that had taken place, and now also reports coming in. And Netanyahu at this point in time claiming that the successor of Hassan Nasrallah has also been killed, although there are no, at this point of time, confirmation that has been given by the Israeli Defense Forces. Now, has there been success in the medium level by Israel to keep these militant organizations, the proxies of Iran, at bay?
Well, I'd like to say, Megha, that Hamas calculated that taking a large number of hostages, an unprecedented number of hostages, would ensure the absence of any Israeli counterattack. That hasn't worked out. And Hezbollah would have thought that a two-front war is something that Israel is going to find it difficult to handle, and that's also not the case. And we have seen new modes of warfare, new modes of weaponry, frankly, which are basically household objects for all of us. So I simply want to say, Megha, that if you don't accept the right of Israel to exist as a country, and tangentially and very explicitly in the case of many of these organizations, they don't accept the right of the Jewish people to exist, then what option do you have except to either be eliminated or to eliminate? This is the problem. And now look at the difference between the citizens of GCC and the citizens of Iran. Look at the difference. Look at the difference of the citizens of Lebanon and citizens of, let's say, Kuwait or the UAE. The UAE and the Kuwaiti citizens are very comfortable. Why? Because they accept the existence of Israel, and that is the reality. They have no animus towards the Jewish people, and they should not. I think we are all children of the same Almighty. And I think, very frankly, Megha, that Israel now sees an opportunity to ensure that those who are deniers, we have talked of Holocaust deniers, people who denied that this horrible Holocaust of Jewish community took place in the pre. Now you have deniers, again you have got a rise of deniers of the right of the Jewish people and the Jewish state to exist. So I think, Megha, quite frankly, Netanyahu realized on October 7, this is an existential battle, and it's an existential battle, you have to go all out. And he has gone all out. And I think the clerical regime in Iran, if it revises its policy towards Israel and accepts the right of Israel to exist, well, I would only like to say that that is the only way out for it. Otherwise, you're going to see a situation in which Iran is also dragged into this war, and I fear Iranian people have suffered a lot because of this policy of denial of the right of Israel and the right of the Jewish people to exist, and I think the suffering will be even more intensified. But I want to make a very clear point, Megha, and that is neither the United States nor any other major democracy would like to see terror succeed at the expense of a democracy. And in Israel, you have rights for all the Israeli citizens that are not there, for example, in countries such as Lebanon, in effect, and Iran. So I simply want to say, Megha, it's an existential struggle. Prime Minister Netanyahu understands that. I think the Israeli people also understand that. And frankly, I don't believe the rest of the world is going to stand by and just witness another attempt at Holocaust, the way, I'm sorry to say, much of the world, especially the Western world, Europe and the United States in particular, they just stood by and witnessed the Holocaust taking place. I mean, building up from 1933 onwards, they just witnessed it.
Okay.
History should not repeat, and it will not repeat the 21st century. Thank you, Meg.
Okay, Burzine Wagmar also on the telecast with me. Burzine, there is a counter narrative that has been put forth by Iran and its allies against Israel, where the Netanyahu government is what the Iranians claim has refused to accept the hostage deal with Hamas, reflecting how little they value Israeli life.
Yes, Prime Minister Netanyahu has dug his heels in, you're right, and there has been massive domestic discontent across Israeli society for not accepting a deal. But that would set a dangerous precedent all over the Middle East, and also the fact that terrorism pays. That is the message that Hamas would have wanted to get across with this atrocity committed on the 7th of October, which saw the wholesale massacre of Jews not seen since 1945 and the Holocaust and the war ending. That's number one, which is why Prime Minister Netanyahu cannot simply yield to such demands. I also wish to correct something, Meghna, which needs to be put once and for all out. Iran did not conduct a so-called successful nuclear test on the night of 5th October. This was put out by sensationalist social media portals on Telegram run by ultra-conservative and Shia hardliners. It was, for all purposes and intents, now known. We know it now 3 days on. 25 seismological institutes have confirmed it was merely an earthquake in Semnan province, measuring 4.5 on the Richter scale. It was not a nuclear test, and that common sense dictates, for the simple reason you need 90% enrichment to have a bomb, and even before reaching the bomb stage to have actual tests, pilot tests to be carried out. That has not happened, and that brings me to the Iranian studies factor, Meghna, now. In August 2019, Iran had 45 centrifuges. As I am on air, it has 10,609. So there has been a rapid increase in their production and ramping up of technology. And this January past, uranium gas enrichment was up, according to an IAEA expert who noticed, up to 83.7%. So that is worrying, to say the least. The question is, would Ms. Netanyahu bomb the facilities, the nuclear sites, which are scattered all over? But the two main problematic ones are deep underground, and for that, I'm afraid Israel does not have the technology and would have to depend on US B-2 stealth bombers, the ones that can carry what are known as massive ordnance penetration bombs. That is to say, bombs that can penetrate up to 60 feet, say the Natanz facility. And those are about 30,000 pound bombs. And for that, of course, collaboration with Washington is required. Israel would not be able to do it alone. But
Okay.
then Israel does have other sub-nuclear options. For example, the oil facilities at Karg Island, Hormuzgan and else, and even the Abadan refinery. You see, the argument has been made in certain Israeli quarters, even if it sounds hardline, that taking out the oil facilities may be an option because you cut off the supply of funding for terrorism, because that is what Iran has been using these oil proceeds for.
Okay, that's an interesting debate also, because United States of America. Yeah, quickly. Yes.
Iran has raked in about $35 billion in oil proceeds, because all of their oil has been being bought off by the Chinese, and all of this funding is not going towards ameliorating the Iranian condition of its people and the economy, which is in rack and ruin, but towards funding all these proxies in
okay, fine. But then again, this is a two-edged sword, and Ambassador Basuti Mukherjee rightly mentioned that there are US elections that are impending. This is going to be then impacted of how the Democrats are going to be witnessed by the domestic audience. Let's also talk about how the Houthi attacks on a number of these containers in the past has ended up increasing the oil prices exponentially, and the cost of actually taking the container ships to longer routes, alternative routes, that has led to a halt in the naval operations, in the commercial naval operations across the globe. So how do we resolve this, Ambassador Basuti Mukherjee? Like, is the response that is expected of the Netanyahu government, should it be calibrated and limit itself to the proxy organizations that are functioning along the borders? And perhaps when we talk about attacks on the nuclear facilities or oil fields in Iran is perhaps a long shot, and Israel will comply to what the United States of America is at this point of time urging it to do.
Megha, the problem is that the whole issue has got deeply enmeshed in the American presidential elections. There is huge speculation that Trump would like Israel to take a hardline position that will help him to win the election. There is huge speculation that that is also what the present Israeli government would like. They would like Trump as president and not Harris. So, although it is speculative, there is no doubt that United States at the present moment, under a president who is leaving, does not seem to have the ability to really influence the Israeli government's strategic decisions which they would take for their own national security interests. Therefore, I would not be surprised if there would be escalation so that they would ensure a Trump victory in the US presidential election. So it's far more complex than just Israel, Iran, Hezbollah, proxies, etc. And one must also not forget the powerful Jewish lobby in the United States, embedded in both parties, Democrats and Republicans, the funding power they have, the fact that Kamala Harris is deeply handicapped because she is vice president of the present administration, but she has a Jewish husband. These are all very complex issues, and I think that no simple solution based on just plain strategic calculations on your part or my part or on the part of an Indian audience would suffice, because it is deeply enmeshed in the outcome of the American presidential election,
okay.
A highly polarized election whose outcome is absolutely neck to neck as we speak. Megha.
Okay, all right. Quickly also getting in Aran here into the conversation. Aran, how do you view, again, an aspect that is then going to perhaps seal the fate of two countries, which is Israel and United States of America. Okay, I'm being told that Aran is not on the telecast with me, but Professor Madan Alpa, the closing comment over here, where Trump has, without any inhibitions, tells Netanyahu on a public platform that he should go and bomb Iranian oil fields. On the other hand, Kamala Harris in a 60 minutes interview that took place on one of the TV news channels speaks about how, or lack of her at this point in time, even confirming and acknowledging that United States of America finds a close ally in Israel. How does this play out for Israel and US future relations?
Who is this question for?
This is for Professor Madhavan Nalapat.
Yeah, I want to say one thing very clearly, Megha, and that is that in the United States there are several members of the Jewish community who are completely for Kamala Harris. It's not simply her husband, Douglas Emhoff, who is obviously for her, along with their children. But the reality is that there are several members of the Jewish community who are staunch Democrats. And in fact, there are several members of the community who believe that Netanyahu should stop the war. The Jewish community is a vibrant community. It's a democratic community, and they have multiple opinions. So and frankly, this talk about a Jewish lobby, I mean, I think it can be a little bit overblown to talk about a Jewish lobby because I think, frankly, that kind of thing has been used in the past and it's not been used in a way which has been helpful to societal peace. So I just want to say one thing, Megha. I don't think the American election has any role to play in it. I think Netanyahu woke up from a long slumber in which he had ignored the danger of Hamas, ignored the danger of Hezbollah, trained his fire on the Palestinian Authority more than on Iran, and he woke up from his slumber on October 7. Now that he is awake, he is not going to go back to sleep again until he succeeds in his mission of eliminating those in the Middle East who do not accept the right of the Jewish people to be there in the state of Israel. Frankly, I don't think he's going to stop, and I don't believe any American president will or can make him stop. I don't think Kamala Harris is going to make him stop, and I don't believe any democracy is going to make him stop. If the people who have denied the right of Jewish people to exist, people who have denied the right of Israel to exist and who do everything possible to destroy Israel and to harm the Jewish community, well, they have brought this war on themselves, and I hope common sense prevails and we all learn to live together in peace with each other.
Yes.
And that brings to some fanatics of the Jewish faith as well.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.